How many of you guys ate today? You ate from agriculture, large-scale acreage, machine planted, machine managed, machine harvested, machine processed, machine transported. Don't worry about it. Get used to it. Because if you want to say that agriculture, the scale of agriculture is part of the problem, I challenge you to stop eating tomorrow and go right to your backyard and or the person with the market garden next door and see who starts first. Until we have totally restored the ecology of the planet, medicines, fuels, and fibers for everybody. I've been talking about the same stuff like this every single year for 20 years now. How many of you actually have a farm that looks like this? What I'm striving to do here is help you guys and start to get the practical applications of systems thinking. You go to all the different workshops here, nut production, vegetable production, composting. These are all tools in the toolbox. Manage everything as a whole system. Our planet, universe, everything, a big, huge system that all kind of works together. A lot of the problems in agriculture today come from this vast oversimplification. Who's insane enough to think that let's only grow one crop? We'll incorporate the best of what we can take from holistic management. When we make a decision, assume that we're wrong. Redesign, rethink. How many of you have taken a permaculture design course? It's a fabulous tool in the toolbox. Key line design, water management, land sculpting to optimize our water resources. The Zero Emissions Research Institute. Why aren't we researching this crap anymore? Folks, if you want to have zero emissions, guess what? Design for it. Do it. Wet systems. How many of you urinate? Wash your hands, wash your clothes. We use water. We need to integrate water into our thinking. Whatever we're doing, we have to deal with our liquid effluents, our solid effluents as well. Carbon farmers, they're a pretty hardcore group, folks. Don't get stuck on any one thing. Go to all these different workshops, and instead of saying, I'm going to do hydroponic air spinner under a USDA hoop, and that's like the one true way. Start thinking in whole systems. Let's really, for real, really start pushing some legislation to have some conversion strategy to go away from a resource-rich to a resource-scarce economy and culture. All of these work together, whole systems thinking. What really tickled me about permaculture 18 years ago, it was probably 1986 when I heard this. Australian fellow Bill Mollison came on. He was talking about this permaculture, permanent agriculture. The aim is to create systems that are ecologically sound and economically profitable. Now, isn't that like a holy grail or a Rosetta Stone? No worries, Mike. They don't pollute, they're sustainable in the long term. And our goals here are to design things so that everything is a relationship with everything else and their function and yield are optimized. Did I say we maximize the yield of anything? Absolutely. What's important is the health of the whole entire system. I do like about permaculture is based on an ethic. Care of the earth, care of people. We don't take care of the planet, we won't take care of us. We have to have some equitable system by which we exchange goods and services. Because when economic systems become inequitable, people get pissy. And people get violent. All we have to do is go take a look at Syria, right? Syria is an example of an endgame story of a culture that has destroyed its environment over the past 10,000 years. It was once upon a time the breadbasket of the whole Persian Empire. And now that's all that's left up in Syria is a bunch of ruins and artillery installations. We have to figure out some kind of system here. We observe and imitate nature, we interact with it, we accept feedback, we work with nature instead of fight against it. Any of you guys ever have a garden? Anybody ever have weeds in a garden? Has anybody ever won? Why fight? Okay? Gardening and farming the way that human beings have been doing it for the past 10 years has a 10,000-year track record of failure. Let's not do that anymore. Let's do something else. Let's work with succession. Try to do the least amount of work that has the greatest long-term effect and understand and use natural succession. Weeds, by the way, in the garden is a part of nature's process. I was just thinking of that. Nature's process of taking a piece of bare black soil and healing it. Quick, puts its plants on, grows like crazy, lots of carbon, its roots go down, it holds the soil in place, it dies, it decomposes, it sets tons of hard seeds because it knows that it might never get bare soil again for another 100 years. Perennial plants come in, the bushes come in, trees and shrubs and vines, and 1,800 years later it's an old growth eastern hemlock and beech forest in central Ohio, and then a windstorm comes down, kaboom! And all these roots tear up out of the ground, there's bare soil. And then the annual plant sprout like that. That's their role in nature, is to capture and hold in place degraded, exposed soil. And when we go in and we cut down the trees, plow up all the stumps, and plow year after year, we just keep setting succession back at the very beginning stage. There's even more weeds now than there was when they started using herbicides. Even bigger weed problems. We want to create integrated cyclical systems instead of linear extraction and pollution systems. We want to have circular systems like nature does. When any energy like light or rain or minerals comes into a tree, for example, that tree doesn't let go. It takes it up into its body, puts it into its leaves, drops it on the ground, it decomposes, the roots go get it again, it just goes around and around and around. Don't buy from Amazon, because I only make $1.30. Why do I have to put the word permaculture as a small word and restoration agriculture as these bigger words? Ecological restoration on trade and ecology has become a very expensive thing. First of all, you take this land out of production, you take the cornfield, so now it's no longer contributing to the food system. So I think that's a net loss for humanity. Then we have to spend all kinds of money to replant the plants that we say were the plants that were there in 1846 or 1739 or whatever. We pick this arbitrary point in time and put the species there. Well, now it wants to change and evolve, and nature is all around it, and it's moving through time. It's like, it can't have these in there. And now we have to apply herbicides, or college students go pull weeds. Ecological restoration, although it's critically necessary for air, clean water, building soil, all kinds of wildlife, endangered species, etc. It's critical. But it's become this insanely twisted, hyper-expensive thing that takes land out of production. How about environmental economy? Why not design our farms to imitate nature and then go in the same direction as natural succession, and we harvest the yields from it? So we've done genuine ecological restoration, and we're farming and harvesting all these goodies from it. When I first trained in permaculture, I got the first edition hard copy of Bill Wallis's book, the Permaculture Designer's Manual. In the back of it was the names and addresses of everybody who had ever taken the training. Like, wow, now there's like 10,000 people a year take the training. Well, what happens is most of the people who take the training are suburban, fairly well educated, and have a certain amount of resources. And so if you go online and go permaculture, this is the kind of stuff you come up with. You can actually produce higher yields than in broad scale, broad acre agriculture. It changed my life, it really did. It really changed my life. We need to design things for real that are real. This right here is a Cobb pizza oven. It's like almost every permaculture course, you've got to make a Cobb pizza oven. We're going to save the world with Cobb pizza ovens. Well, a mud pizza oven is a great idea if you live in Arizona. This is in Vermont. You know what it does in Vermont? It rains. Okay? What happens to a mud pizza oven in the rain? Well, then you can put a roof over it. It's like, well, what's the point of doing this technology? It's out of place. That's a desert strategy. And look in Vermont, what did they put that mud pizza oven on? Rocks! That's what Vermont has, is rocks. Why not make a rock pizza oven? One technology from one place should be applied differently over here. We have to be real about our designs and make things that actually function. The herb spiral. Yeah, we can get more surface area exposed to all these different aspects of the sun. But have you ever tried to pull flatgrass out of an herb spiral? Holy crap. The rain barrel. This is everywhere. Almost all major cities now have a rain barrel program. You get these super discounts. The rain barrel is a design hallucination. Water falls from the sky and it's on a roof. You can collect it, store it, and use it later. That's an awesome idea. Everybody should be doing this. A square, like this little square piece of floor right here. A 1-inch rain will generate 62 gallons of water. A 40 by 40 house generates about 1,500 gallons of water. So this 100 gallons worth of rainwater storage overflows, goes down in the basement, the carpet gets wet, now black mold sets in, the kids all get asthma. Design failure number 2, it goes without rain for 3 weeks, now you got to water tomatoes. Half the water is evaporated, you go water 6 tomato plants. Where's the sustainability in this? Where is the permanent agriculture? Where's the permaculture? Capturing and utilizing our water resource, brilliant. The strategy of a 55-gallon or 100-gallon rain barrel to capture water off the roof of your house is not real. This is one thing I'm promoting everywhere I go. I think it now should be municipal code. Anywhere and everywhere a single-family dwelling is built, it's required by law to have a swimming pool in the backyard. We had swimming pools in the backyards of all these folks down in West Virginia when that chemical plant blew out. They'd still be drinking water. All of a sudden your house burns down, like a 500-gallon tanker comes up, Now they're going to drive down the road and get another tanker full of water out of the hydrant because the municipality can't afford to put a hydrant to go to every single house. There is a problem with starvation around the world, with malnutrition around the world, and organics isn't necessarily the answer either. This is a award-winning certified organic farmer that for 2 different years he got the Wisconsin record for total highest corn yields. One of the 2 people who can talk faster than me. On the 26th of May, now we're farmers, right? We're in the business of growing stuff that's green. Photosynthesis is our business. Whether we're going to sell the green stuff, some seeds, feed it to animals, whatever it is, the green is what we're all about. June 21st is the longest days of the year. Almost half of the year's sunlight is gone. They didn't even catch it. He doesn't even have his crop in the ground yet. Knee-high by the 4th of July, these little teeny tiny corn plants, is that capturing as much sunlight as he possibly could? Well, why not have a perennial system here? These trees have been green for a month, capturing sunlight from 100 feet up, and also atmosphere from 100 feet up. Plants' bodies are made up primarily of lignin and cellulose. Lignin and cellulose are made up of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Where does a plant get the carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen? Right out of the air. The soil is really just a medium to kind of hang out there. It's a catalyst. It's really not important. Anybody ever see trees growing out of the cliffs on the side of the road? Mm-hmm. Who prepared that soil? Who put cover crops on it for 5 years, composted it, did weed control, pest control, disease control? The tree is growing just happily as can be right out of the cliff, and it will be there for 1,800 years if it wants to be. We want to have deep, three-dimensional structures that capture lots of sunlight, lots of atmosphere, and they're perennial. We never have to plant it again. How much diesel fuel is this guy blowing? Every single minute as he's blowing across the field. What's happening to his resource base, his soil? Blowing away the wind. No wonder he has to bring stuff in. One of our permaculture principles we want to do is we want to observe nature and interact with it and imitate it. We have to know the difference between an observation and a concept. An observation is something you can see, hear, taste, touch, smell, measure with instruments. A concept, on the other hand, is merely an intellectual construct. It's an idea that we lay on reality. To illustrate this, how many of you have heard of invasive species? Name one organism on the face of the planet that has an intellectual concept, just an idea, called invasion. Human beings. When we view our world through our concept, invasion, what do we see? We see an invasion. And then how do we respond to that invasion? We fight! So what happens, 99% of all invasive species is science trying to teach us how to fight an invasion. And it's not actually observing what's really going on. Apple orchard. Every single problem that you encounter in an apple orchard is because you have this orchard and you want nature to comply with your idea of what an orchard should be. It will never happen. Nature is what it is, and it will do what it does. And if you try to force it to comply to your idea of orchard, you will have problems. Problems, because you are not observing, you are operating through your concept. You're seeing your fruit through this idea. I heard it the first time when I was like in 6th grade. If you were to save 1,000 seeds in order to come up with one good variety out of that, so don't bother saving the seeds, it's a waste of time. Which part of that may be an observation? And which part of that is a pure concept? It may indeed take 1,000 seeds to come up with one good variety. Part of it that's a concept is saying, therefore, it's a waste of time, don't save your seeds. How many of you people have seedling varieties of apples that you've raised from seed that are pest and disease-free, that require no soil amendments, no inputs whatsoever? How many of you have apple varieties? Oh, nobody's planting apple seeds? Why? Because we view the world through this concept. Oh, it's a waste of time, don't bother. It may take 1,000 seeds to get one good variety. Now, the concept I'm going to give you guys, how many seeds you have to plant in order to get 5 good varieties? How different would the world be if we adopted that second concept instead of the first one? We keep looking at like, well, how many seeds do I have to plant in order to get one of these? How many seeds do I have to plant in order to get one of these? There'd be fruit everywhere. And instead, we don't have it. Prior to European settlement, this piece of planet right here was photosynthetically productive, supported rich variety of life, with no fossil fuels, commercial fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, and not even any tillage. Can we design a farming system to operate this way? And can we provide the staple foods, our carbohydrates, proteins, and oils? Carbohydrates, proteins, and oils are our staple food crops. Bread, our noodles, protein products, our meat, eggs, milk. Those are staple foods. This picture was taken 15 years after the corn was harvested. It was a profitable venture. We wanted to identify the biome. Where do we live? Permaculturists have this real big fascination with guilds. We have to invent families of plants. This lives with that, with this, and they're totally compatible and they like each other. So we don't have to invent guilds. Nature's done this for zillions of years. The answers are right out the ditch on the side of the road. Optimize our water resource. Plants will grow in any soil, anywhere, all over the planet, whether they're alkaline or acid or deficient in this or excessively abundant in that. There are plants that are adapted to live there. Every big single surface of the planet can grow plants. However, we don't know of any plants that will survive without water. What's the average rainfall around here in Ohio? So when that rain comes down, we want to make sure that that rain is spread out, slowed down, soaked into the ground, stored so we can use it later for real. Without water, screw it. If you haven't done water management on your land, don't even try anything else. Because you will always have a problem because you didn't manage your water resource. Look at the ditch on the side of the road and look at all these different plants, tall trees, medium trees, etc. How can I set up a system with the same plants, mechanically plant it, maintain it, harvest from it efficiently and effectively, and get all the benefits of the ecological services, pest control, disease control, that comes just from natural processes. Then you build your fences and roads. Once you do this pattern here, this is key line design. It tells you where to put your rows of trees, where to put your fences, where to put the roads, where to put the buildings. It's not arbitrary. I accept the fact that I'm going to design my farm based on how the biological system works. I'm going to work around that with my designs instead of saying, I want it here. And then you force the rest of the farm to do what you want. Utilize agroforestry practices, alley cropping, silvopasture, windbreaks, riparian buffers, and forest farming are 5 official agroforestry techniques. Then you basically manage for eternity. Here's a chestnut tree with an understory of currant with hazelnuts and elderberries, mulberries, and grapes in the middle between the row. And then it's grazed by cattle, hogs, turkeys, sheep, and chickens. 10 different yields coming off of the same ground. And it's prairie. It's totally prairie. There's a number of different plant communities that we can use as an example. Wherever we live, and we're located somewhere right around here. This is a family of plants, and if you write anything down, I want you guys to write this down. The plants that I'll show up on the right-hand side in red, they're in order of height. And so they can be planted right in the same place, right on top of each other. Taller ones are the Fagaceae, oak, chestnut, and beech. What do they all have in common? Please help me. Nuts, thank you. Oak and beech tend to bear periodically. That's a great tidbit of information. However, we don't know where the oaks are and the beech are that bear every single year. Because how many of you guys are involved in an initiative to go out and find oaks and beech that produce heavy crops early in their life every single year? Besides us, I have a criteria where any chestnuts that are planted, they have to produce heavy crops within 5 years. I waste my time with them. I have several family lines that you plant the seed in the ground and it flowers as soon as it comes up out of the seed. My farm is located right over there. Growing chestnuts, there are approximately 0 chestnut growers in the state of Wisconsin, 0 hazelnut growers in the state of Wisconsin. I call the experts and the grand poobahs of all chestnut culture grafted cultivars of the trees that have a proven track record of 30 years or more, blah, 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 blah. It's like, can you tell me what those varieties are? Oh, chestnuts don't grow in Wisconsin. Well, if I had those varieties, how far apart would I plant them? Well, if you do that, you plant them 30 feet apart. Because then, eventually, in 30 years, a big, huge tree will have the most amount of surface area bearing seeds. So it means 50 trees per acre. The first year I did that, it's like, this is ridiculous. The second year I did that, this is ridiculous. And I did variety trials. I got trees from everywhere I could because I knew that they were all going to die, right? That's what I was told. In year 2, I'm planting these 30 foot apart, and I'm looking over there at year 1. There's one over there that's got flowers on it, and there's one over there that's got flowers on it. 2-year-old plants is like, hey, wait a minute. I've got my own potential early to reproduce, cold hardy seed stock right there that reproduces really fast, but it's wind pollinated. If you got one little chestnut over there and one little one over here, it might as well be on the moon. Playing with only 50 plants per acre, it's like playing Yahtzee with only 3 dice. In Yahtzee, you roll 5 dice and you get 5 of a kind, it's a Yahtzee. If I give you 3 dice, you can roll 3 dice as many times as you want, and you will never roll 5 of a kind. So I started planting more. There has to be a genetic variation out there somewhere where a beech comes right up out of the ground and starts bearing nuts right away. We just haven't found it. You have to trust the land-grant universities and the stainless steel gleaming buildings and one pollen grain, bag it, one pollen grain, put it in the ground and pray for 30 years and beg for funding. Screw that. Throw the seeds in the ground everywhere. So these are the natural native plant communities. This is one of the most widespread plant communities in North America. As an understory, we're apples. Prior to Europeans' arrival, they were mostly crab apples. So if we're going to imitate nature, prunus is great because there are tall ones, medium ones, short ones, all different varieties of these. Raspberries, grapes, currants, grapes climbing on the whole, that's raspberries going out into the grasses around it, currants, gooseberries living in the shade. Then there's fungus decomposing all this biomass, from wood decomposing fungus to free living in the soil fungus to leaf decomposing fungus. Forage, green grass grow all around, and animals. The savanna biome on planet Earth is the biome that supports the most mammal biomass of any biome on the planet. Why not, if we are mammals, why not plant a habitat that can support the most of us? This particular family right here, we're out yielding corn by a factor of 30% total calories per acre. Nutrition per acre, forget it, it's not even close. We don't even have a conversation. If you want to eat number 2 dead corn, you're dead within a year. You just are. Total yield versus total nutrition. Where's the nutrition going to be coming from? Cost of production. Yes, we have to set this up. And yes, we have to farm something else in the middle of the rows in between while this is maturing. You don't have to plant this again. The cost of production goes down, 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 down until your eventual cost becomes harvest cost. It's the only cost you will have, harvest and processing. This is a classic example of a savanna. One of the reasons why it can produce so much mammal biomass is got this three-dimensional structure. It's green from 100 feet up all the way down to the grasses. The savanna biome and short rotation woody cropping systems capture between 3 and 7 times the total energy per acre as an annual crop. So we don't have to get 300 bushels an acre of corn because we have like 3 times to 7 times as much energy to play with. The dominant grazing animal right here before people got here. Bison was the first answer. It's usually what we get. Mastodons. These are the elephant savannas of North America. And when the trees get too tall and can't get foliage anymore, they knock it down, they rip it down, they shred it to pieces. Savannas of North America were basically managed by abusive browsing and grazing and fire. I lived today to see my granddaughters riding on elephants with big, huge 16-foot-long cattle prods, herding bison. But in the meantime, we can imitate the effects of large herbivores by bringing on some large herbivores. We got cowies, we got piggies, we got turkeys. If you look in your mind in the National Geographic film with the Serengeti, there's all kinds of animals all mixed together. And they're going across the Serengeti plains, beautifully grazed, and poop about this thing. So the reason why all those animals can live together is they eat different things. So they're utilizing different parts of that system. So we have, 7 or 8 different layers? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Because in here, we're now going to have at least 5 different kinds of animals. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 5 is 14 different yields coming off that same piece of ground. Does anybody think that there's no market for raspberries, or shiitake mushrooms, or morels, or turkey? Do this presentation and say, oh yeah, we're going to be a cattle. Go to the workshop on how to be a cattle person, the whole livestock rotational grazing, learn all that. That's useful information. It's one little tool in your toolkit. We're managing the ecological system here, and all of these things are pieces of this whole. A sheep person, my uncle said, oh, Mark, you're going to get into sheep. So I go, why is that? No. He says, well, I'm going to lose about $10 a head. It's like, sign me up. We're not talking about being a chicken person, or a turkey person, or a pig person, or an apple person. We are managing the ecological system. We're doing it all. Chestnuts. One of the neat things about chestnuts, nutritionally, they're equivalent of a grain, the most nutritional equivalent of brown rice. It's a high carbohydrate, lots of water when it's fresh off the tree. Needs to be refrigerated right away. It will start to mold and spoil. It'll start to sprout on the refrigerator, what they do. So here's our chestnuts that grow on the trees. We got our corn on trees. We can make high fructose chestnut syrup. We can make Cheetos. I've had both made out of chestnuts. Apples, fruit juice, vinegar, alcohol. Look at the fruit quality here. We've been certified organic since 1995. And use no sprays, never, period. None. When we first set up our apple orchard, we planted 219 different grafted varieties of apple tree. All on seedling rootstock that was planted from seed. We managed them with my trademarked management technique, stun, which means sheer, total, utter neglect. Sheer, total, utter neglect, the ones that are going to die, good riddance. I'm not going to waste my time and money on input costs to baby a stupid plant that doesn't belong here in the first place. You're going to grow, you're going to thrive in heavy side competition, you're going to have rodents nibbling at you, you're going to have stem borers, you're going to have apple scab, you're going to have fire blight, all the insults that the apple can possibly take. You're going to stand tall and proud and produce food like this. This is one of my seedling varieties called lace. Nothing bothers it. You can take lace and you can slice it up and put it out on the table, and it can be 110% humidity. It's raining outside, it's foggy and cloudy and all this kind of stuff, and it'll dehydrate and not turn brown. How'd you find that? Oh, genetically engineered. Plant seeds, food, juice, vinegar, alcohol. We get 100% utilization out of our apples. In the fall, we let 50% of the crop fall to the ground. That's the one that has bugs in it. Then we go through and we harvest it. If it's got any kind of damage on it, we throw it on the ground. And then we pick what remains. Maybe we end up with 20% of the yield of apples that you would expect to get if you have an apple orchard. But what will my costs if I'm treating it with stun? Zero cost. Matter of fact, not just zero cost. I had how many other yields off of that same apple orchard ground? I had 5 different kinds of animals, trying to get 10 different things going on in the same place at the same time. Brown stuff that in the States they call it cider, but around the rest of the world they call it juice. Then you ferment some of it with oxygen, it becomes vinegar, you can use to preserve your food. Or you ferment some of it without oxygen, it becomes alcohol, a fine breakfast drink. My president, John Adams, was 5'4". He started every breakfast with a 42-ounce tankard of alcoholic apple cider because it eased his digestion. That's a president. Some of that alcohol we can distill. We use the tops, which is fusel oils and methanol, to blend with oil. Hazelnut is 50 to 60% oil, and the rest is protein, so it's like a soybean that grows on a bush. You can mix the oil plus the alcohol, make diesel fuel. The shells burn as hot as anthracite coal, so now we have an annual biomass harvest that can be fueling an electric generator if you want to gasify it. And then periodically we remove stems out of here and do quite well selling hazelnut prunings for people who want to make woven hazelnut fences in the backyard in the suburbs. So you drive to town with like $1,000 worth of sticks in the back of your truck and it's like, as long as the check clears. Yes, if you live in the suburbs, do this in your backyard, it works. But please, let's amp it up, especially for permaculturists. It is not enough to plant a mud oven and an herbs bar and a couple of sunflowers. And what we need to do is amp it up and really produce food, fuels, medicine, and fibers for the 7 billion people on this planet, and we may have to use machines. This is actually mechanical apple harvesting down in South Africa. They produce 49% of the world's apple ethanol. They're almost fossil fuel free. We hear about Brazil using their sugarcane waste to make ethanol to power their cars and trucks. Well, they use apples to power their cars and trucks. They take their petroleum and they sell it on the world market to get currency. Brilliant strategy. This one's German. This is a blueberry harvester. Also can harvest coffee, grapes, Siberian pea shrub. It's harvesting hazelnuts. We'll do little tweaks on it. Eventually we want to put a husker in here, so nuts come off within a little nut cluster with the husker, goes through the husker. Nut sweeper, picker, upper, picks up pecans, walnuts, black walnuts, butternuts, hickories, chestnuts, dog food, golf balls, and then you sort them out later. This is the Hammond Company in Stockton, Missouri. Hundreds of millions of tons of product is what we need. There's 7 billion people on this planet. Growing 3 berry bushes in your backyard is great if you want some berries on ice cream someday. It's been years I've been trying to convince people, man, there's huge markets for hazel. I don't see any in the stores. I don't see in the marketplace. There ain't no market for it. Who hasn't heard of Nutella, right? This is now the world's largest hazelnut processing facility in Ontario. Where do we get their nuts from? Turkey. If we can't eat turkey on freight, we've got a problem. Well, in order to fill these bags and access those markets, that's equivalent to 4 acres worth of hazelnuts in each bag. And they'll fill 3 of those bags in an hour. Now, we as individuals are small-time farmers. We bring our product over here, it gets consolidated, and then it goes off, and it gets processed and goes off the market. Because we don't need, all of us don't need to have this kind of equipment. Let's own it jointly. I'm a member of Organic Valley. I was grower number 24. When I started, it was only like $300,000 worth of sales. Last summer, we went through $1 billion of sales. As small-timers, stick together. We can hate one another. We have different political opinions, different religious opinions, all that kind of stuff. We're going to stick together, own equipment in common, whether it's a company, an LLC, a C Corp, S Corp, co-op, doesn't really matter. And then we'll sell to these guys. Play with big boys while being little guys. There's this invisible force in nature, this plant success. We can't see, hear, taste, touch, and smell, but we can observe the physical outworkings of it in some kind of invisible force. How many of you jumped off the couch when you were little? How many of you actually went up? You know, no idea what gravity is, but it works. It's real. What's the most significant difference about this farm right here. It's not the water, it's not the trees, it's not the patterns that are slightly off the contour, it's not the fact that they're producing their own fuel, that they're generating their own electricity and on their own heat. Ready for this one? Every single residential structure produces its own power and its own heat. If you just design it that way, by design, roots in the ground. The time for talking about it is over. It's time to put our will into action. We want to make the biggest input that will have the longest back for a little bit of work. Key line design. The land, by its natural shape, will concentrate the water in the valley that flows away. There's much reaping and loading in national teeth. However, if we go up on the uplands and we redesign things to move the water around, a series of swales and burners and ditches, we can keep the water in the landscape up where we need it, surface ponds, tanks, in the subsoil, storing the soil. We can rejuvenate springs this way. I actually have. We'll need to use tools, something as simple as an A-frame, so you can figure out where the level is, and you can figure out slopes, or a laser level. One of the reasons why we need tools is our eyes can be deceiving. This little swale right here, that's going downhill at 1% slope. It takes water from here, like where your collarbone is. This is a key point in the landscape. It spreads it out to your collarbone and around the shoulders, instead of going here and out the back. This space between where he's standing right here, in 15 years that that was in place, it's captured and soaked in an extra 95,000 gallons of water. So you have a row of apples, and this row of apples, and this row of apples, and this row of apples. They're planted on the same afternoon. This one had a swale to burn the tree. This had no swale, and that one had a swale to burn the tree. Do you think it made a difference? Well, we didn't know spacing is how to do it, but we've learned a lot in the 20 years since then. This water here, formerly was about 600 feet in the forward direction, and drop 100 feet, and it's off the farm. It's gone. Now, capturing it right here, it's equivalent to this spot right here. It now moves down around the ridge that way. It goes 1,200 feet and only drops 1 foot, and it soaks in out of the ridge, which is your driest part of your farm on the ridges. So you're watering our ridges by capturing the water resource on high. That's the official key point. It's a great place to start for designing a system like this. The process I'm about to show you is a process that will do it no matter where we locate that starting point. We start with the key point pond. When it fills up, it overflows. And it goes out towards the ridges. I use most commonly a 1% slope. We have to be within a certain margin of error, or else we're violating the USDA code. We want this to be a slow, gradual drop to the ridges. And we make things parallel. All of our fields will end up being parallel, so it's easy to use your equipment. You just go in and around, in and around, in and around, even number of passes with your equipment. And these cattle can water from here, these ones can water from there, they can water from here, so you have multiple watering points. Every time that our secondary lines cross these are called primary valleys, we put a drive-through pond. And during a big, heavy rainfall event full of water, they're shallow, they're designed to soak in, and then we just drive right through and hay it, crop it, whatever we want to do. They have outlets out of the shoulder. If it ever does make it all the way up to the ridge and it does fill up, these are perfectly level. And then it runs in a sheet. And it goes in a sheet down the ridge instead of a river down the valley. We're taking concentrated water, concentrated valley water, and turning it into distributed sheet out on the ridge. So we can saddle pond with its outlets, its drive-through pocket ponds. Then we can feed that saddle from the tops of these hills. With this system in place right here, there's no high tech. There's just ditches in the ground. I've worked in places that have soil systems that were put in the 1930s with shovels are still in place. There's systems like this in the Middle East that have been around for 10,000 years. And don't you think there will be a lot more biological productivity if this water, instead of concentrating here, going down, hitting this drain, going away, will actually spread out and soak in? Don't you think there will be more water in the system here? This space is called an alley. The ditch is a swale, and the lump is the berm in a row of trees. Alley, swale, berm, trees. Alley, swale, berm, trees. That's the pattern that repeats across the whole farm. Then we use a technique with a subsoil, a hook, cut little slots in the ground. It lets air in the ground, and when you do have water that hits, it just accents the flow of the water from the valleys out to the ridge. Once you get water and oxygen down there, plant roots proliferate, the soil biology takes off, and we've converted the red clay soil of our farm into topsoil in 15 short years. It's not like chocolate cake brown. We didn't add topsoil on top. We converted the subsoil to topsoil. We had no topsoil, it's all red clay. If any water happens to get to the bottom, this key line design shows you where to put wind structures, and this nice little wind gap up on the ridge, and we can pump the water back up and start it all over again. I'm circulating this. I don't want that water to go away. It's my productivity. I also get it from any of my neighbors that have tile drainage or culverts on the side of the road. If they come anywhere near me, on my farm, on our 110 acres, I think there's about 300 acres worth of water that I move on my property. These are agroforestry techniques. This is silvopasture. Cattle amongst trees. This is not putting cattle in the woods. This is more sheep or pigs or whatever. It's managing both the forage and the timber. Notice the lush grass. Walnut, try to use deep-rooted, taproot trees, they'll do better. Use multi-species livestock, silvopasture, graze. We've done it with as few as 4 animals. Put them in a real small spot with extra hot portable fence wire, and they bunch together. And all of a sudden they just click, and they go into herd mentality, and then they don't separate. And they'll be like this, and it's like this little semicircle, all eyes on the outside looking for predators. They graze faster because they see the guy next to them grazing, so they're, uh-oh, if I don't graze, they're going to graze it. So they move through a lot faster. And if they come up with something that ordinarily they would not want to eat, like goldenrod, they eat it because they know that if they don't eat it, somebody else will, and they just keep moving on. I use cattle as a management tool. Alley cropping, you grow some sort of cash crop in the alleys between the rows of trees. Your apple orchard is going to take a number of years before you get apples. You might as well grow something in between, from small grains to produce to corn. We have polyculture of all kinds of stuff. Tall trees, small trees, shrubs, canes, vines, shade tolerance, fungus. Now we have multiple yields. I'm still going to go through and harvest wheat. How much did I actually take out of production? You know, a little 4-foot wide swath. And if I'm getting something high value like chives in the spring, when you just chop it and bunch them like leaves of chives, I get like $1.25 for a bundle of chives like that, selling them wholesale. You've got these rows. I think I have something like 2 or 3 miles worth of chives. It's right there. You say, oh, how do you harvest stuff when it's all in polyculture? It's like, well, those are chives. And today I'm picking chives. This is alley cropping with an acorn squash between rows of hazelnut, yellow sweet clover and rye, and then a row of hybrid poplars as a spray break between us and the neighbors. It didn't look like this when we got started. It looked like a big, huge squash field and like this little teeny tiny tree that we hoped would survive. This system changes all the time. Corn farmers, they put their corn in the ground and expect everything to always be the same. We're now involved. We're part of the natural process. We're part of succession. We know that every single year the conditions are going to be different. We're going to have more shade as time goes on. Mr. Apple Orchard, I really appreciate you allowing me to use you as an example. Let's pretend he also has a vineyard. So he goes out to the apple orchard and he proves the apples because he wants to get good airflow and all that kind of stuff. Good standard orchard practice, which I recommend everybody learn that. Well, then he goes over to a grape vineyard and he proves an acre of grapes. They're trellised on this trellis equipment, and they've cost $10,000 an acre to get the posts and the wires and the ratchets and the tighteners. So he has extra time involved because he has 2 different acres that he has to prune. And he has a thing that's going to degrade the trellis. As soon as you put it in the ground, it's in the process of falling apart. Or you can go ahead and you can grow your grapes on your trees. And your grapes won't pull the trees down, they won't strangle the trees because you are pruning your grapes and you're pruning your trees. Instead of pruning like an apple orchard or pruning like a vineyard, you're pruning a vineyard tree. Pruning the apples, pruning the grapes. So I'm doing multiple things at the same time that won't look like your orchard. Sunflowers. It'll only take about 10% of your ground in sunflowers to press all the oil that you need to run your equipment tractor converted to vegetable oil. Now, do I grow my own oil and press my own oil? Do you water, filter my own oil? Nope, I'm part of an oil cartel. It's like a dozen of us, we all got together, we got an oil press on a truck, so we own the equipment in common, and this other guy, Jake, set up the dewatering and filtering equipment. And so when it's time to go ahead and harvest, I call Zach, he comes with the press, I call Jake, he comes with the filters. We do the harvesting, the pressing, the filtering. It all goes in the totes and tanks. Some guys are actually selling their vegetable oil to potato chip companies. Jake is going out and he's getting oil after the potato chip companies are done with it and running it back to our tractors. How about supplying potato chip companies with tanker loads full of sunflower oil and then go and get those tanker loads back? Now we're talking fuel. Most people have heard of the 3 sisters, right? Corn, beans. This right here is 4 different crops. We raise the crops for wholesale, pallet quantities. It's not like a box at farmer's market. An acre of pepper plants, an acre of acorn squash, an acre of sunflowers, and an acre of chestnuts. When grown together, they're using different root layers and different sky layers. And we get about a half a yield of peppers, a half a yield of sunflowers, a half a yield of squash, and a half a yield of chestnuts. Now, what's a half and a half is 1, and a half and a half, that's 2. We got 2 total yields off that acre. I'll take half the yields and get twice as much. It works. As long as my plant is ahead of the weeds, that's all I care. We all strive to fatten up the ecological system. Bat houses, bird houses, Coffee cans full of paper straws, and all kinds of little wild bees were nesting. Total number of species matters. Minnesota has been doing a lot of research on the effects of diversity on total site yield. The more species you have, the more total yield you have. From our perspective, can I handle 300 different crops in the same thing? I try to get 10, great. 10 is enough for me. If I got 4 of you, maybe that's not enough to put on 2 pallets to call a truck in. And so there is a point in time where you just can't handle that much diversity. Put elderberry, mulberry, grapes, and raspberries right in the middle. I know they're going to like it there because they're showing up on their own. So that's the same picture, just a few years later. The site's going to change over time. We're building topsoil here, where we're taking carbon out of the atmosphere. How many tons of carbon is now out of the atmosphere in my soil right here? How much fungus is going on? How much soil life? How many little prairie plants are starting to sprout? These little live flowers that just show up. You ever seen chestnuts in the moon? That's what they look like, all that white. Mulberries in the foreground, and it closes in even more. This is starting to get too shady for my lights here, because if I want to keep it in the savanna phase, I want to have that grass growing vigorously. So this is where I have to start going in and removing branches. Oh, that's work. Well, no, you cut it and you inoculate it with mushrooms. And then you put the logs in the shade. Now you've got $50 a pound shiitakes in your shade growing from your waste product. Everything that you do, strive to turn it into a buck somehow. There's girls. This is Lola. She was wonderful, sweet, seriously recessive, so she was someone on her level, so we ate her. I was stupid. So we graze the animals right in with the trees. People say, oh yeah, they'll kill your trees. Like, well, no, they'll kill your trees if you leave them there and don't move the animals. They would rather not go to the trees as their first choice. They want to have a nice lush pasture. So you just have to observe, and we use them for pruning. They actually do go in and they browse the trees. Remember all those species I listed? They're all designed to be abused by animals. We are actually intentionally sending them here. This is black locust, and they love black locust. I'm the mastodon, so I fire up a chainsaw and I start dropping trees down that I don't want, so the grass will grow better. Now the cattle hear the chainsaw, they come running. They know there's good eats coming. Yeah, they're breaking branches, but look at this. They've removed all the foliage down low. So now if a raindrop hits and there's some kind of like a scab in apple trees, the spore will splash up and you can't find a branch. And it just falls back to the ground. So we short circuit a lot of the fungal diseases. Good airflow through here. Now we've used the animals to trample. Half the grass is trampled down in this mulch pack, and there's 35 gallons of pee a day for an adult cow, and all the poop that's coming out. You think those trees are going to be happy? I think so. Half grass, half it's eaten, lots of food, happy trees. We turn the kids loose, chestnuts and hazelnut and grass. We put rings in their noses so they don't lose up the pasture. It's all about grazing the grass. Camels will actually do quite well on the grass. We use our sheep mostly as brush control, poultry for prolific profits. I was excited about getting a 20% reduction in feed costs. It doesn't tell you that you get about 8,000% increase in labor. So screw it. So eventually we went free range. We either survive or don't. And people say, oh, don't you have a lot of problems with predators? It's like, well, not with the smart ones. Getting 1,000 birds, 80%, boom, gone. Coyotes, foxes, hawks, owls, you just wasted them. But those ones that were left behind, they were smart. And then every day we'll go out with like a handful of grain, and you call them, and you scatter the grain so that now they associate you with trees. Then in the fall, we wanted our brood stock, so I go find the trees and catch them at night, and we clip their wings, put them in our coop with our own home laying flock. And then the next spring, we raised, hatched out another 1,000 eggs. And so then we took these little chickens and said, wouldn't it be nice if we didn't have to have brooders and lights and propane and all this kind of stuff? And there's all these mother hens laying around. Let's try something. We dump these little day-old chicks right next to these mother hens, and we've never seen chicks. And the little kids are like, I'm cold. And that's right in there. And they learn how to be mama and kids. Well, mama's got better things to do than hang out with these little kids. And she's looking for hawks and running for cover. And she taught them how to run and hide. Year 2, our losses were about 50%. Year 3, 4 birds. We lost 4 birds out of 1,000. Turkeys, they're not that smart. Now we're pushing the boundaries, we start to get weird with law. Well, I can go buy wild turkey eggs or hatchlings, right? If I raise wild turkeys, my own domestic wild turkeys, I have the right to slaughter and eat them. Well, what if I raise turkeys that are wild genetics and then I raise them this way? Those are my domestic turkeys. Can I go eat them? I don't have to obey your laws and all that kind of stuff. What happens when we set up wild farms that outproduce corn 30% on total yield per acre and nutrition per acre is out of this world, and all we have is a wild ecosystem that we've planted, designed it intentionally, and managed for harvest. These guys like brush control. We'll fence them off with the netting, the multi-floor rows, prickly ash, honeysuckle, nastiest crap, black locust, buckthorn. Check out the look on these girls' face. Are these domestic little barnyard hens? Those are dinosaurs. Sometimes when we call these girls in, all of a sudden you'll see one comes in with like little chicks, so they're starting to learn how to breed again. Inputs will create your next set of problems. Weed control, I've already done in an apple orchard with tillage or mulch. That's an input, that's work, that's an expense. Chemicals, we use herbicide, that's an input, that's work, that's an expense. We use biology. Daffodils will naturally outcompete the sod. They're poisonous to rodents. Daffodils bloom 3 weeks before the apples do, which is just enough time for the wild pollinators to raise the next generation of young. We sell cut flowers for a dime a stem. There's blow honey, and daffodils in my apple orchard, there is apples. Irises will also outcompete the sod, and the roots we'll be selling into a skincare company. They come for you as well, but they'll outcompete the sod and accumulate calcium and phosphorus. What's your biggest orchard problem?
The biggest problem is the peaches getting scab and mold and going away. And we actually graze our livestock in the orchard to prune them just how you said. That was actually the permaculture certification course I went to 9 years ago and spoke at. So.
Good. Fungal disease, you mentioned mold. So the branches prune up like this, get better airflow, get better sunlight penetration. And apple scab is a big one. Why on earth would you spray a fungicide in the orchard? Why would you want to kill $50 a pound fungus that show up in the orchard? I didn't put those there. Nobody has figured out how to propagate morels. But if you stop spraying the fungicides and set up conditions where they like, all of a sudden you get more profits. You get daffodils, irises, comfrey, morels, cattle, sheep, pigs, turkeys, and chickens. Oh yeah, right, this is an apple orchard. Forgot to mention that. It's just one of the crops in our system. Don't tell these trees that you won't get yields this way. You'll get the yields. Pest pressure drops way, way down because after we've put all the apples on the ground and we'll squish our cider and our alcoholic apple cider, who comes in after us after apple harvest? Pigs. They clean it all up and they turn, all these insect pests, they turn into pork chops. I'd much rather eat bacon than rotten apples. Here we have a system. These are beds of asparagus in the alleys and between rows of chestnut trees. This will experience increasing yields and fertility for eons. I theorize that we'll kind of hit our peak productivity because the system will kind of max out, we think. There will be this optimum, we just can't produce anymore. In about 15 years, I think, we'll probably be approaching that. It's a perennial system. Pasture cropping, I don't feel comfortable enough with my skill at pasture cropping yet to recommend it and talk about it and teach about it, but I'll at least mention it. I have patches of rye that I planted 5 years ago. I've never planted it again. It's not perennial, but how we manage it, a lot of seed scatters and green seeds. It's in the same place I'm going 5 years out on one of my fields of rye. You walk away from it, it's going to be productive forever. This is what Castagna Centopavalo. This is the 35th oldest living organism on the face of the planet. It is the tree that was measured with the largest trunk of any other tree ever, bigger than the biggest redwood. It's a chestnut tree growing out of the solid volcanic rock on the south side of Mount Etna. This is how wide the trunk was, and it was not all that tall. It was like this big, huge, craggy thing because it had been burned by volcanoes and earthquakes and storms, threw up branches. And as soon as it was measured and confirmed it was the largest tree trunk ever measured on the planet, and somebody went out and burned it. But remember what I mentioned about these species? They're adapted to abusive browsing and fire. And so it just kept growing. A little sprout ring around the stump. Just keep growing, producing chestnuts with no inputs for 4,000 years. I think that's sustainable. When you burn down your cornfield, will it produce next year? Most people, our gardens will end up looking like this by the time you hit July, so why not design it that way? We design for what we call strategic abandonment. We plant way too much crop, and we do the weeding by removing crop, putting it in the salad bowl, the stir-fry bowl, whatever the deal is. And if you know what you're looking at, it's like 10 different types of garden, typical garden produce that we roll out there. We don't need to have these fancy elaborate gardens with nice little rows and square foot, blah, blah. Just plant stuff everywhere. Let it figure it out. I haven't planted arugula since 1996. Let it go to seed. Somebody came over to the house once and I was like, oh, let me help you out. This lettuce is bolting. It's like, ah! The lettuce is reseeding. Well, yeah, we gotta pull it. It's like, why? Why would you pull the lettuce that's reseeding? Why would you take the cilantro out that I haven't planted since 1996? Plant it once and we'll figure it out. One of the things I haven't figured out yet is, okay, so mustard greens, I like them, but they're really prolific, and I have like lots of mustard greens. And as they seed through the season, some of them are like wickedly hot, and I swear they're like deadly poison or something. So we're now managing a dynamic system. When my kids were littler, they get grumpy. When they're grumpy, that means they're hungry. And so, like, you guys just go outside and eat. Almost any time of year, there's something outside to eat. We actually overgrazed the dandelions within about 100 yards from our house. We go pick them from the salad bowl. It went away. So how about that? Let's take care of dandelion problems in the suburbs, like eating it. I was walking this way, I saw this phenomenon, got my camera, came back up, and it was gone. But up top is the eastern kingbird. They're an insect-eating bird. They fly out and up. They catch their insects in the air. There's an eastern phoebe right here. They go up. They go down. They hit the ground sometimes. And there was a bluebird right over here that pounces the ground. Three-dimensional insect control. Plus, the system is full of tree frogs. On the ground, there's toads. And one of the amazing things about amphibians, they get about 50% of their oxygen through their skin. Why on earth would I spray any kind of insecticide, knowing that it's going to go right through the skin of my insecticide? And so I make my frogs and toads sick. Why not let them do their work? And if we had more time, I'd say, somebody point to the apple tree. This is an apple orchard. Point to the apple. Pests can't find it either. The pests can't find it, so they're not interested. They're going to go over to his organic orchard because there's lots of apple trees. It's all apples. Then when you try to go in here, that's the apple tree right there. They get picked off by eastern kingbird, an eastern phoebe, a bluebird, or several different kinds of amphibians. It's a hostile environment for pests. Plus, we've short-circuited. There's fewer eggs that hatch because of the way we're grazing animals through the system. So let's do a little math here. In a system like this, we get 3 to 7 times the energy capture per acre. We improve the resource base. We turn red clay into topsoil. I'm still looking for somebody to come up to the part of this challenge. I challenge somebody who has a 5-acre rock in the center of either Lake Superior or Stednick Lake between Maine and New Brunswick. And I'll show you how to farm the solid rock using these techniques. Just want to hang out on the rock and move the lake for some of that salt. No plowing, cultivating, pest and disease control once established. There's year-round harvest, there's multiple yields, multiple products. There's no erosion, it's non-toxic, beautiful. I think it's beautiful. If you don't think it's beautiful, go get some black plastic edging at Home Depot, put it around there, it's pink spray painted mulch, and you put it out there. Then it's beautiful. That's working with nature. This, on the other hand, is not. This is destroying nature, it's short-circuiting natural processes, and it's creating its own problems. 7 times less energy captured than this again. Degrades the resource base, the soil erosion, chemical contamination, plowing, herbicide, pesticide, fungicide, fertilizers, year after year, after year, after year, after year, after year. If sustainable agriculture was so sustainable, why do we have to keep adding stuff to it? And people say, well, organic is the answer. Well, the past 26 civilizations have collapsed, have all been organic. We're just using different poisons, different tools. There's one crop, there's one market, there's total risk exposure. You degrade the landscape, you degrade the small towns, you degrade cultures. Where does this lead? Over and over and over again, every single time that a society has based its staple food crops diet on annual plants, it has ended in collapse. You cut down all the trees, you wash the soil away, you blow it away in the wind. Now you don't have a biological sponge in place, soil life collapses, the total diversity collapses, you cause siltation downstream. All of a sudden now you have no more resources because you've gone from the source, a concentrated source, you've used them, and now it's become waste. And at the end of most civilizational ages, there's this huge stratification that happens between these people who live up here, these people who live down there. These people up here start telling these folks down there, hey man, get off your butts and do something with yourself. Like I did when my dad gave me $5 million. I picked myself up from nothing. You can do the same. And these people say, well, you know, if you let something trickle down beside your urine, maybe you can do something. So these guys blame these guys blame those guys, back and forth, back and forth. Both of them have elements of truth. Well, now these people start to be pissing at those people. So these guys have to make bigger driveways, longer driveways, big, huge gates, and it ends. This place right now today has an artillery installation right around the ridge right there. This is in Palmyra, Syria. And they're using this as the installation to shell these people. These people are destroying these people because these people are the problem. These people are trying to overthrow these people because they're the problem. Part of it is the fact that the whole entire culture is based on destroying the resource base and profiting fatly for a brief period of time, and it's gone. This was like cradle of civilization, some of the richest, most abundant places on earth, and turning to wasteland. You can do that if you want, not me. I'm going to do something like this. Yours is the only life that you have any control over, so I suggest that we do something real with it. Let's make some oxygen, water, food, shelter, beauty for real. We are responsible for creating our own habitat. As a matter of fact, we're responsible for creating the abundance of the future. Our parents and ancestors inherited a richly abundant, clean, healthy planet. We've inherited a radioactive cinder with poison that falls out of the sky with every breath that we take. When my dad was 20 years old, he's still alive, he's only 80 years old. He was 20 years old, he could have walked from Washington State all the way down to 2/3 through California, walking across the backs of salmon in every single creek. There are no more natural runs of salmon on the West Coast. They're all hatchery raised. This whole entire culture has destroyed everything, is in the process of destroying everything at a faster and faster place. We have to turn it around, because if we don't, we will. Nobody else is making any nature out there. We have to make the new nature. We have to make the new abundant resources of the future. What happens if all of a sudden you're one of the only ones that has a chestnut timber available and everything else is scattered on nothing? What happens if there is a zombie apocalypse? We need, to run these farm systems without fossil fuels and blah, blah, blah. Well, guess what? I can manage a whole entire farm with a stick, and a piece of rawhide, fire, and then chopping trees down and animals. Fire and animals, stick in the stone, we can manage the system if we have to. Based on actual reality, not on virtual reality. We want to see, hear, taste, touch, smell, emote, move, relate. We use the minerals, the plants, and animals, and we can become comfortable with history. I already mentioned like gravity and now there's heat, there's light, plant succession. There's stuff that we have no clue about. If human beings were all that smart, why did it take us 10,000 years to put wheels in our luggage? We're not all that smart. It's okay, I'm totally comfortable with that. Because when I make a decision, it's wrong. But I'm going to take feedback and adjust, and adjust, and adjust, and adjust. Accept feedback. There's no mistakes, only feedback. The only mistake that I can see is not doing it. If you want to go home and there's plow all that around, go all compost in class, vertical compost, where it's flying waste products from everywhere. Get into that one little niche and say, I'm just going to perfect this one thing. Yeah, I want to base my farm on hemp, because hemp is everything. It's like, well, you've bought the one true solution to agriculture that's wrong. We're talking about the planet is a system of systems. You have to manage a system of systems. Redesign when it doesn't work out right. One of the things that we have in our favor, all of you guys are here for a reason. And one of them is that you guys are tapped into this huge electrical arc of surging lightning that just kind of stays there forever. It's a power that has never been defeated on the face of the planet. And it will never be defeated on the face of this planet, because it is the most powerful thing in the world, even more powerful than nuclear energy. And that's the power of love. What I mean by the power of love isn't just the sentiment of, oh, I love you, that's sweet. It's the rip snorting, flaming sword down the throat, mother screaming in childbirth, tiger defending her young. That's kind of love. How many of you women have had kids? Was it pleasant? Do you love your children any less for it? That was power. So we're going to work with the power of love. My wife and sweetheart Jennifer, oldest son Eric, and son Daniel. This picture right here, 100% of what you see is marketable product that we're farming on purpose. It was designed, put there on purpose. And 15 years before this picture was taken, it was a cornfield. We have to turn this thing around, and we can do it. As the eyes of the future are looking back at us, they have prayed for us to see beyond our own time. I hope that you go home, think differently, feel differently, and get up off your duff and act differently. Thank you much for being here.